The following story has been brought to you by StoriesToInspire.org.
So I want to tell you a story that I heard this week from someone that I know. His name is Eli Rowe. He's an amazing person. He does chesed all day. He lives in Queens. He's a big Hatzalah member. He took me on his private jet. He has a private jet. He took me on his private jet to Minnesota to save a girl. He's helped me many times since then. He told me this story this week. You got to hear this. This is a crazy story. Talk about life as a stuma. So there's a guy, you can chas v'shalom if you have internet. You can Google him. He was a Jewish guy named Jerry Rosenberg. He lived in Borough Park. He was in the jewelry business. He did diamonds. About 50 years ago, actually 1960, so he was dealing in stolen diamonds. And the police from the 70th precinct in Brooklyn ran a sting where they went to buy these stolen diamonds. And they taped everything, and they caught them. And as they were taking out their badges to identify themselves as police, Jerry Rosenberg realized that he's about to go to jail for a long time. So he took out a gun that was in his drawer since he was a jeweler, and he shot both these policemen to death. He was arrested and sentenced to Attica prison in upstate to be executed in New York State. But you know, execution takes a long time. And this Jerry Rosenberg was a very smart guy, studied in prison and became a lawyer, and actually defended himself and overturned the death sentence to 250 years in prison. So they weren't going to kill him, but he was going to be in prison for a very long time. He wasn't religious. He talked to no rabbis. Not one of those stories where guys came and put tefillin on him. Not interested at all in anything in Judaism. Borough Park boy. Why is he famous? Because Jerry Rosenberg is still today was the longest living convict ever to live in prison. He lived 47 years in prison before he died. So why am I telling you about this person? 10 years before he died, in prison there's a chaplain, a priest. And the priest saw that this Jew, Jerry Rosenberg, doesn't keep anything at all. No kosher, no tefillin, nothing. So he figured maybe he could save this guy's soul and bring him to Christianity. So he went into Jerry. He said, listen, I see you don't keep Judaism anyway. If you'll come over and convert to Christianity, then our Savior, our Messiah, Yashka, and you agree to embrace him, you will be forgiven. So here's your chance to be forgiven. And Jerry Rosenberg looked at this priest and said the following. Father, I'm really sorry, but I was born a Jew. And I'm born a Jew, and I'm going to die a Jew. And the priest said, how do you die a Jew? What does that mean? And he said, well, when it comes to Jews' burial, we don't cremate. We get buried in a graveyard with other Jews. They put us in a pool of water, a mikvah, and it's really funny, they bury us in this white robe without pockets, called tachrichim. He says, and everything in between, I'm not interested in. Shabbos, kosher, tefillin, I'm not interested in anything else in between. But, born a Jew, you die a Jew. Now get out of my cell. And he threw him out. Okay. Priest never went back to him. He realized this is not a guy you're going to deal with. 10 years later, he dies. Jerry Rosenberg dies. This is a true story. This is amazing. On the news, all over New York, headlines. The oldest convict in New York State has just died. Jerry Rosenberg, convicted of murder. Few years, you can Google it. So 3 years ago I think he died. Murderer of 2 policemen, died in Attica. record probably never to be broken. Happens to be that night, the priest is watching the news. He's retired. He is no longer in Attica prison. He's sitting there and he says, oh my goodness, I recognize that name. That's the Jew who I went in to try to convert him, and he told me that he wants to die as a Jew. Gets on the phone, calls Attica, speaks to the chaplain, says, what's the deal? How are you burying him? And he says, well, in Attica, any convict, we just cremate him and that's it. We cremate him and we bury him in the backyard or whatever. He says, no. You can't do that. Why not? Because his last will and testament says that he has to have a pool of water, some funny jacket or something that they wear. He's got to be buried in a Jewish cemetery and he can't be cremated. And the chaplain says, I'm sorry, I don't have anything written. He didn't leave a will and testament. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, we're going to cremate him. He said, but you don't understand, I'm a priest. And this is what I'm telling you, this is what he said to me. He must be buried as a Jew. You can't do this. Okay. Here's the deal. You get the body out of here before 9 o'clock, we don't cremate him. How's he going to get a body? Attica's way up somewhere, who knows where. So this priest called the rabbi, I think in Buffalo, who called Hatzalah or the Chevra Kadisha in Queens, who called Eli Rowe, because there was no way they could drive up and get the body in time, and told him, we got to get this body. He jumps into his jet, flies up to Attica, and picks up, this is a true story, he told me this week, picks up Jerry Rosenberg's body, which is in 2 body bags, tosses him into the plane. Actually, he had nowhere to put him in the plane, so he put him in the seat behind him. Right? Showed me a picture of a body bag, seat belted in. Right? And he's saying the whole time he's flying in, like, Jerry, I know you haven't had peanuts and soda while you were in jail, maybe I can give you some peanuts. He made a whole joke out of the whole thing, but it wasn't a joke. But Lamaisa, at the end of the story, he flies him back to Queens. They do a tahara in a mikvah. They put on his tachrichim. They have a levaya with more than 1 million guys. They say Mishnayos. They say Tehillim. They say Kaddish. They take him out. They say Kel Mali Rachamim. They say Kaddish with 1 million. And he's buried like any regular Jew. He didn't keep Shabbos. He didn't keep kosher. He wanted nothing to do with anything. But from his mouth came a wish. Born a Jew, I want to die a Jew. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who some of us question, and some of us are angry at because of the way we think he treats us, HaKadosh Baruch Hu heard this man in jail, this murderer in jail, who kept nothing, asked for one thing, a Jewish burial, and through a priest, he got a Yiddish burial the way that it was supposed to be. Death, dying like a Jew, is a moment. Living like a Jew is a lifetime.
Enjoyed this story? Come again. Bring a friend. StoriesToInspire.org